some review materials that I've been using for my physiology and histology quiz, actually, that I have Monday. Start off with some flashcards, I guess. Wow, that's a lot. What are the two major anatomical divisions of the nervous system? We've got the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. Yes. Yeah, I got a haircut. Well, my brother gave me a haircut, and I, uh, I didn't. Well, it's not that I didn't like it. It's just I don't know. It looked a little strange, so had to fix it. And the only way to fix a bad haircut is either to wait or to get a buzz cut. It's okay. I was needing a trim, but I gave him a haircut too, and he said he liked it, so I'm glad he liked it. Which two structures make up the central nervous system? The brain and the spinal cord. Yep. The boundaries of the central nervous system. Hmm. There we go. Okay. But how you doing, Wizard? It's good to see you again. That's good. Yeah, I've been pretty busy too. Exhausted. Um, Burnt out, I guess, from streaming. I hate being burnt out though, because then I don't get to talk to you guys. Uh, so I try to do it more often, but or at least daily. I'd like to. Okay. The boundaries of the central nervous system are defined by being encased in blank and protected by the blood-brain barrier, dura mater. Yep. You're waiting for lunchtime? Yeah, you hungry? I ate this morning. I usually eat one meal a day. What are the three main components of the brain within the central nervous system? We've got the cerebrum, cerebellum, and the brain stem. What are the five major functional divisions of the central nervous system? Telencephalon, diencephalon, meninges, and that's all I can think of. Okay, meninges isn't even in there. Telencephalon, diencephalon, cerebellum, brainstem, and spinal cord. Five major functional divisions of the central nervous system. Telencephalon, diencephalon, cerebellum, brainstem, spinal cord. The telencephalon is composed of the cerebrum and a large mass of what? Gray matter? No, connecting pathways. The telencephalon is composed of the cerebrum, and a large mass of connecting pathways. In what two ways is the cerebrum topographically organized? Uh, it has specific cortical areas which mediate specific functions, and it is somatotopically organized within each specific area. You've been on your bed all day, huh, Wizard? I've done that before. No judgment from me. What is the term for the orderly spatial mapping of body parts onto the cortex? Hey, how's it going? Spatial mapping. Somatotopic organization. Somatotopic organization. The motor cortex is located in which lobe of the cerebrum? I think it's the telencephalon. Nope, frontal lobe. Motor cortex is in the frontal lobe. Which cerebral lobe is primarily responsible for sensory functions like touch, pain, and proprioception? The parietal lobe. Okay. Vision is primarily processed in which lobe of the cerebrum? The occipital lobe. I feel like I knew that. I just wasn't confident enough to say it. Which cerebral lobe is responsible for hearing? Occipital? No, temporal. The temporal lobe. Define proprioception. You're lazy? Yeah, me too, man. I'm lazy sometimes. Just, well, if you have a plan, if you have a goal of what to do with your day, that helps. Usually I get up and my end goal of the day is to, hey Brandy, hey Melissa, how you guys doing? My end goal of the day is to get everything that I need to get done, and then I just use the weekend, if it is the weekend, to rest. Usually if it's during the week, I don't even have time to rest. I just go to bed, which is the transition into the next day. Your goal for tomorrow and today is, let me guess, to be lazy, huh? Or to rest? I don't know. I'm just kidding. Nothing, yeah. Well, tomorrow I'm going to church. That's something I always do on Sundays and Wednesdays. So, just like something to do. Hey, Brandy, thank you for subscribing. But yeah, Saturdays I usually just try to rest as much as I can. And, because the weeks or the weekdays are pretty crazy usually. Proprioception is your ability to feel like where you are physically in the world, I think. The sense arising from within the body regarding position, motion, and equilibrium. Yep. What are the main connecting pathways of the telencephalon? The corpus callosum and the basal ganglia. Hey, Barry and Collie. How you doing? What are the components of the basal ganglia? The striatum, caudate nucleus, and putamen, the globus pallidus, the amygdala, and the hippocampus. I'm doing all right. Just studying, or trying to, while also trying to talk with y'all and enjoy my Saturday, I guess. This is the day the Lord hath made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. I'm just happy I'm alive. I'm here and, I don't know, chilling. And, yeah. Man, something I've really wanted to do is, like, know how many people play games that are my viewers, but I've wanted to like start a gaming channel for forever. I mean, I have one technically. It's a secret channel for now, but um, I've always wanted to like play games with y'all or anyone watching so that I can interact with you guys. But I've never really done it before. So I don't know. I don't know if that's ever gonna happen. Um, I might start it soon, or I might never do it. I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen. I need to study, but uh, I've been playing a lot of Elden Ring recently. It's similar to the Dark Souls games. Dark Souls 1, 2, 3. Those games are pretty fun, and the multiplayer is really fun and funny. It's just, I don't know. It's very unique. But have you played it before? Yeah, I really like those games. Pretty hard. They're pretty hard games. Yeah, they're almost strategy games. Almost. Anyway, I've got to finish this here, and then maybe, I don't know. I really do want to try that though. That would be, I feel like that'd be super fun. But I don't even know if there's enough people, because I play it on PC. I don't know if there's enough of, or enough people in my audience that play those games on PC. See you later, Wizard. It was good to have you, man. Okay, what is the primary cause of nigropalatal or nigropalatal encephalomalacia in horses? Thank you, Barry and Collie. I appreciate you. See you later. The primary cause is ingestion of the toxic plant yellow star thistle. What part of the brain is damaged in nigropalatal encephalomalacia, which leads to an inability to chew? See you later. The basal ganglia is damaged. What happens is the nerves within die. What is a seizure? A seizure, I think, is basically just electricity in the brain spikes and dips very rapidly and unpredictably. Clinical signs that arise from excessive and uncoordinated electrical discharge of neurons. 3 common clinical signs of cerebral disease are seizures, altered consciousness, and behavioral changes, also narcolepsy and blindness. Cerebral disease can be evaluated through imaging techniques such as blank and MRI. CT scan? Yep. Computed tomography, CT. What diagnostic test evaluates brain electrical activity and requires specific training to interpret? Electroencephalography, or EEG. Alright, Barry, it's good to have you, man. What are the 3 functional and anatomical divisions of the cerebellum? The vestibulocerebellum, the spinocerebellum, and the cerebrocerebellum. Which division of the cerebellum is responsible for maintaining head and body position? The vestibulocerebellum. I probably should have known that. Yeah, vestibulocerebellum. Vestibular disease is a disease which happens to affect your proprioception, specifically with your head, relating to the head. The spinocerebellum's primary function is to regulate what? Muscle tone. Which cerebellar division is responsible for coordinating motor movement? The cerebrocerebellum. What is cerebellar abiotrophy? Abiotrophy. It is a genetic or induced degeneration of the cerebellum that occurs in various species. In cats, fetal infection with which virus can cause cerebellar degeneration? Feline panleukopenia virus, FPV, can cause cerebellar degeneration. The diencephalon is composed of which three specific regions? I have no clue. The thalamus, subthalamus, and hypothalamus. I've heard of the hypothalamus. Which part of the diencephalon acts as an integrating station for sensory information going to the cerebral cortex? The thalamus. The subthalamus serves as an integrating station for motor function from what structure? The basal ganglia. Which part of the diencephalon has connections to autonomic nuclei and is part of the endocrine system? Hypothalamus, probably. Yeah. What are the three primary structures of the brain stem? The midbrain, okay, I didn't know that. The midbrain, pons, and medulla, or medulla. Which part of the brainstem contains motor neurons that control eye movement and relays signals for hearing and vision? The midbrain. The blank is part of the brainstem involved in the control of blood pressure, heart rate, respiration, and digestion. Medulla, okay. The segment of the spinal cord has a sensory blank nerve and a motor blank nerve. Sensory afferent and motor efferent nerves, yep. A blank is the area of cutaneous sensory innervation that a single spinal segment provides. Hey Blitz, good to have you back. Cool new username. A blank is the area of cutaneous sensory innervation that a single spinal segment provides. I don't know. A dermatome. In the CNS, an accumulation of cell bodies with a similar function is called a nucleus. Yes. Plural is nuclei. How's life? It's going good. How about for you, man? Yeah, I've just been studying, busy getting schooled at vet school, and that's pretty much it. Playing some Elden Ring recently. Pretty fun game. I want to play it multiplayer with my viewers, but I don't know if I have enough yet, or if I have any that play that game. Thank you. I'm glad you're good. Play Oblivion. I think you mean Oblivion, right? Or is that a game? Oblivious? Oblivion Remastered. I don't know. I never even played the original. I've played Skyrim before, but a group of axons in similar function in the brain and spinal cord form a tract. In the spinal cord, a group of tracts forms a long column known as a funiculus. Support cells or glial cells make up more than blank of the volume of the brain. I think, what is it, 50%? No, yeah, 50% of the volume of the brain. Wow. What are the three membranes or meninges that wrap the CNS from outermost to innermost? Alright, see you in a bit. Blitz. What are the three membranes that wrap the CNS from outermost to innermost? Well, it's the dura mater, the pia mater, and something else. Dura mater, arachnoid mater, and pia mater. Cerebrospinal fluid is found in the blank space located between the arachnoid mater and the pia mater. What is it called? Arachnoid space? Subarachnoid space. Okay. What are the four main types of glial cells in the CNS? I don't know myself. Oh, okay. Astrocytes, oligodendrocytes, microglia, and ependymal cells. Which type of glial cell forms the myelin sheaths in the CNS? Should be oligodendrocytes, yep. In the peripheral nervous system, which cells produce myelin? Schwann cells. Which glial cells are the resident immune cells, or the macrophages, of the CNS? It is the microglia. Yep. Which glial cells line the cavities of the brain and spinal cord and are involved in CSF production? Those are the astrocytes. No, those are the ependymal cells. Sorry. These pop-ups. Okay. Name one structural and one metabolic function of astrocytes. Astrocytes, I think, help make up the lining. Could be wrong, but I think they help ependymal cells. I don't know the metabolic function though. Let's see. Structural, they provide a scaffold for the CNS. Metabolic, they provide nutrients like lactate to neurons. Okay. Upon injury to CNS nerve cells, astrocytes fill the space to form a blank. A glial scar. Whoa. What are the three main components that create the blood-brain barrier? Tight endothelial junctions of capillaries, astrocyte foot processes, and P-glycoprotein pumps. Hey Brandy, what is the function of P-glycoprotein pumps in the BBB, blood-brain barrier? I don't know. They are efflux pumps that transport chemicals and drugs out of endothelial cells back into the capillary. Mutations in the blank gene, which codes for P-glycoprotein, can cause drug sensitivities in certain dog breeds like collies. MDR gene, multiple drug resistance gene. Okay. What are circumventricular organs? Probably organs that go around the ventricles of the brain. Areas of the brain where the blood-brain barrier is not fully present, allowing communication between the brain and periphery. Okay, I didn't know that. The chemoreceptor trigger zone, CRTZ, which induces vomiting, is located on the floor of the blank. Basal ganglia? No, fourth ventricle. Which glial cells rapidly clear excess potassium ions from the extracellular space in the CNS? clue. Astrocytes. Okay. All of this is like, I mean, it's like Greek to me. I don't know why. What is the primary function of cerebrospinal fluid? And it cushions the brain and it gives it nutrients. Yeah, acts as a shock absorber. Okay. CSF is produced by the blank located in the lateral third and fourth ventricles. It's produced by the choroid plexus. What condition results from the failure to absorb CSF adequately, leading to the expansion of the ventricles? Hydrocephalus. What are the two major divisions of the peripheral nervous system based on function? Hydrocephalus, by the way, is if it's seen in neonatal animals, animals that were just born, they'll have like a big old head. Think Megamind. You know, they have just a giant skull, and it's not really a good thing. But anyway, what are the two major divisions of the peripheral nervous system based on function? The somatic division and the autonomic division. The somatic division of the PNS primarily deals with the blank environment and innervates skin, joints, and skeletal muscle. The muscular environment? No, external environment. The autonomic division of the PNS primarily deals with the body's blank environment, innervating smooth muscle, glands, and viscera. Internal. Let's say internal. Yep, internal. Sensory neurons, which may form a reflex arc, carry information from the body to the blank. Brain. Spinal cord or brainstem. Okay. Cranial nerves arise from the blank, while spinal nerves arise from the blank. I'd say cranial nerves. Hey, Ines Brazil Media. Sorry if I said your name wrong. How's it going? Cranial nerves arise from the brain, while spinal nerves arise from the spinal cord. Probably. Yep. Brain stem, spinal cord. Okay. Which cranial nerve is responsible for the sense of smell? Olfactory, which is cranial nerve 1. Which cranial nerve is responsible for vision? Optic, which is nerve 2, I think. Yep. Which 3 cranial nerves are responsible for motor control of eye position? Probably 3, 4, and 5. 3 oculomotor, 4 trochlear, and 6 abducens. Okay. Which cranial nerve provides sensory information from the face and motor control for mastication, which is chewing? Cranial nerve 5, which is trigeminal. Motor control for facial expression is the function of which cranial nerve? Maybe it's 5 as well? No, it's 7. Facial nerve. Which cranial nerve is responsible for hearing and balance? 8. I'm just going to keep counting up. Yep, vestibulocochlear. Which cranial nerve is involved in swallowing and innervates the tongue and pharynx? 9. Glossopharyngeal. The blank nerve provides motor and sensory function to the pharynx, larynx, and viscera. 10, which is the vagus nerve. Okay. Which cranial nerve provides motor control to the neck muscles? I'd say 11, because I think there's only 12. Yep, cranial nerve 11, which is the spinal accessory nerve. And then motor control of the tongue is the primary function of which cranial nerve? Cranial nerve 12, which is hypoglossal. Okay. A single motor neuron in the effector muscle it innervates is known as a motor unit. Where are upper motor neurons, or UMNs, confined? They're confined to the central nervous system. Which type of motor neuron connects the CNS to the effector organ? The lower motor neurons. What is the term for reduced voluntary motor function? Paresis. What is the term for the complete absence of voluntary motor function? Paralysis. No, plegia. Clinical signs such as weakness, hypotonia, and areflexia are indicative of blank motor neuron dysfunction. Sorry about the laptop fan. Oh. There we go. Clinical signs such as weakness, hypotonia, and areflexia are indicative of blank motor neuron dysfunction. Lower motor neuron dysfunction. Clinical signs such as spasticity, paresis, and hyperreflexia are indicative of blank motor neuron dysfunction. Upper, I guess? So lower is weakness, hypotonia, and areflexia, while spasticity, paresis, and hyperreflexia are upper motor neuron dysfunction. What is the term for the conversion of environmental signals into neural signals? Sensory transduction. Nociceptors are sensory receptors that detect what sensation? Pain, okay. What are the two ways the nervous system determines signal intensity? Spatial summation and temporal summation. So how many fibers are stimulated and the intensity of the frequency of the depolarization. The patellar reflex is a myotatic reflex mediated by which nerve? The femoral nerve. Loss of coordinated movement is known as ataxia. What are the three clinical types of ataxia? General proprioceptive ataxia, vestibular ataxia, and cerebellar ataxia. What is the name of the small space where information is transferred from a presynaptic neuron to a postsynaptic neuron? A ganglion. No, the synapse. What? Oh, okay, that makes sense. The depolarization of the presynaptic membrane causes voltage-gated blank channels to open, triggering neurotransmitter release. Voltage-gated ion channels. Okay, voltage-gated calcium channels. The increase in intracellular calcium triggers the fusion of vesicles with the presynaptic membrane via the blank protein complex, G protein. Snare protein, okay. Man, I'm not doing too well on these. What are the three primary mechanisms for terminating a neurotransmitter signal in the synaptic cleft? Diffusion, enzymatic degradation, and active uptake into cells or reuptake. How does botulism toxin cause paralysis? It inhibits it degrades proteins of the snare complex, preventing acetylcholine vesicles from docking and releasing neurotransmitters. What type of postsynaptic receptor has an ion channel in its center and signals very fast when a neurotransmitter binds? The ionotropic receptor. What type of postsynaptic receptor is G protein coupled and initiates an intracellular signaling cascade? The metabotropic receptor. The primary excitatory neurotransmitter in the brain is blank, while the primary inhibitory neurotransmitter is glutamate and GABA. So excitatory is glutamate, inhibitory is GABA. The enzyme blank is responsible for the degradation of acetylcholine in the synaptic cleft. Acetylcholinesterase? Acetylcholinesterase. Okay. That's a long word. What is the pathophysiology of myasthenia gravis? I don't really know what pathophysiology means yet. Probably the cause of the disease relating to the function of the body. Autoantibodies target and reduce the density of nicotinic acetylcholine receptors at the neuromuscular junction, impairing transmission. Dopamine, norepinephrine, and epinephrine are all blank that arise from the amino acid tyrosine. Stimulants, starts with a C, catecholamines. Which two enzymes are primarily responsible for metabolizing catecholamines like norepinephrine? COMT, catecholomethyltransferase, and MAO, monoamine oxidase. Wow. The reuptake of glutamate into astrocytes, conversion to glutamine, and subsequent uptake by neurons is known as the glutamate-glutamine cycle. In the CNS, gray matter is primarily composed of blank, while white matter is composed of blank. I'd say gray matter. One of them's probably neurons and one of them's probably astrocytes. No. Gray matter is primarily composed of neuronal cell bodies and dendrites, while white matter is made of myelinated neuronal axons. Okay. What is neuropil? Neuropil is the eosinic fibrillar material between cell nuclei in the CNS, composed of the cell processes of neurons and glia. The resting membrane potential of a neuron is primarily maintained by ion concentrations, ion channels, and the blank pump. Ion pump, calcium pump. Okay, no, it's the sodium-potassium pump. What event is triggered when a stimulus causes the neuron's membrane potential to reach the threshold potential? Not too sure. Oh, an action potential. Yeah, I should have known that. The rapid depolarization phase of an action potential is caused by the opening of voltage-gated blank channels. Calcium? No, sodium. Voltage-gated sodium channels. The repolarization phase of an action potential is caused by the opening of voltage-gated blank channels. Potassium. Yes. What is the absolute refractory period? It's a period during which sodium channels are inactivated and another action potential cannot be generated, regardless of stimulus strength. What is saltatory conduction? It is the rapid propagation of action potentials along myelinated axons where the impulse jumps from one node of Ranvier to the next. A hyperpolarizing stimulus that moves the membrane potential further away from the threshold results in an inhibitory postsynaptic potential, or IPSP. A depolarizing stimulus that moves the membrane potential closer to the threshold results in an excitatory postsynaptic potential, EPSP. What is the most common morphologic type of neuron in the PNS and CNS of vertebrates? The multipolar neuron. In the PNS, what type of glial cell surrounds the neuron cell bodies in sensory, parasympathetic, and sympathetic ganglia? Satellite cells. Okay. And that's it for the flashcards. Alright, here's a quiz. A veterinary neurologist observes a patient with spasticity, hyperreflexia, and ataxia. These clinical signs are most characteristic of dysfunction in which part of the motor system? Upper motor neurons. Yes. Upper motor neurons initiate voluntary movement and regulate posture. Damage to them results in a loss of inhibition, leading to exaggerated reflexes, or hyperreflexia, and increased muscle tone, or spasticity. Which glial cell type is responsible for producing the myelin sheath around multiple axons in the central nervous system? Oligodendrocytes. These cells are located in the CNS and have processes that can wrap around and myelinate segments of many different axons simultaneously. A direct trigger for the fusion of synaptic vesicles with the presynaptic membrane and the subsequent release of neurotransmitters is the influx of which ion? I think it's calcium. Yep. When an action potential reaches the nerve terminal, it opens voltage-gated calcium channels, and the resulting influx of calcium activates the snare protein complex, causing vesicles to fuse and release their contents. A horse that has ingested yellow star thistle develops nigropalatal encephalomalacia. This condition causes neuronal death in which specific brain region, leading to an inability to chew? It is the basal ganglia. This toxin specifically targets nerves within the basal ganglia, which are crucial for motor control, and in this case primarily affects the muscles of mastication and the tongue. What is the primary function of astrocytes in feet in the central nervous system? I think it's C, yes. Astrocyte foot processes wrap around the brain's capillaries, contributing to the tight junctions that form the highly selective blood-brain barrier. The rapid depolarization phase of an action potential is primarily caused by the opening of which type of ion channels? Depolarization, I think, is the opening of sodium channels, yes. When the membrane potential reaches a threshold, these channels open rapidly, allowing a massive influx of sodium ions that causes the membrane potential to become positive. Myasthenia gravis is an autoimmune disease characterized by fatigable muscle weakness. It is caused by autoantibodies that target and damage receptors for which neurotransmitter? Acetylcholine. This disease involves autoantibodies targeting nicotinic acetylcholine receptors at the neuromuscular junction, impairing signal transmission from nerve to muscle and causing weakness. Which of the following describes the anatomical organization of the central nervous system? Well, it's made of the brain and spinal cord, encased within the dura mater. Yep. The CNS is defined anatomically as the brain, which is the cerebrum, cerebellum, brainstem, and the spinal cord, which are protected by the meninges, including the dura mater and the blood-brain barrier. Cerebrospinal fluid is a clear, colorless fluid that cushions the brain and spinal cord. It is primarily produced by modified ependymal cells located in which structures? Choroid plexus. The choroid plexus, found in the brain's ventricles, is composed of leaky capillaries surrounded by specialized ependymal cells that produce an ultrafiltrate of plasma to create CSF. What is the defining characteristic of a lower motor neuron? I think it It exits the CNS and directly connects to an effector organ like a muscle. The lower motor neuron is the final common pathway, as its axon leaves the brainstem or spinal cord to directly innervate and transmit the upper motor neuron's signal to a target muscle or gland. Okay. A cat that was infected in utero with feline panleukopenia virus is born with cerebellar abiotrophy. Which of the following clinical signs would be most expected? Dysmetria, head tremors, and a base-wide stance. The cerebellum's function is to coordinate and modulate motor movement. Its dysfunction leads to an inability to regulate the rate and range of motion, which is dysmetria, and maintain balance, resulting in ataxia and tremors. In the spinal cord, an accumulation of neuronal cell bodies with a similar function is referred to as a nucleus. What is a group of axons with a similar function that travel together called? I think it's a tract. Yes. Within the CNS, the brain and spinal cord, a bundle of axons sharing a common origin, destination, and function is known as a tract, like the spinothalamic tract. Which lobe of the cerebral cortex is primarily responsible for integrating sensory information such as touch, pain, and proprioception? The parietal lobe. The parietal lobe is the main hub for the somatosensory system, receiving and processing sensory input from the body regarding touch, temperature, pain, and body position, which is also referred to as proprioception. The absolute refractory period after an action potential occurs because the absolute refractory period after an action potential occurs because the voltage-gated sodium channels are in what state? I have no idea. Inactivated. Okay. Following opening, an inactivation gate blocks the channel, rendering it unresponsive to further stimulation for a short time, regardless of the stimulus strength. This ensures the action potential propagates in one direction. Finally, botulism toxin causes flaccid paralysis by preventing the release of acetylcholine at the neuromuscular junction. It achieves this by directly interfering with what critical component? the snare protein complex. This toxin acts as a protease that degrades proteins of the snare complex, which is essential for docking synaptic vesicles to the presynaptic membrane for neurotransmitter release. Without a functional snare complex, vesicles cannot fuse. Okay, not horrible. Not horrible. I'll probably do this again some other day, maybe tomorrow, sometime hopefully before the quiz. But I need to review, so. But I don't want to review anymore. This is getting to be boring. But anyway, I think that's it for this stream. So thank you all for watching. I appreciate y'all.